Hello, and thank you for accessing our mini session, Top 5 Considerations as Employees Return to Travel in 15 Minutes. This training is part of our Timely Topics education series, which includes education and resources designed to speak to the current business environment. I'm your host, Naomi, and I'll be going over a few quick items before we get started. Everything you see on your screen is movable and resizable using the arrows in the corners. At the bottom of your screen are multiple widgets to support today's session, and I'll highlight a few now. If you have any questions about today's content, you can submit them through the Q&A widget, and we'll be sure to get back to you via email. We also have additional resources and links to support today's topic in the resources widget that looks like a folder, so be sure to check that out. And finally, to help guide us on future topics, we ask that you complete a quick survey at the close of the session. You can find it in the widget that looks like a clipboard. Now that that's out of the way, I'd like to hand it off to our speaker for today's mini session, Ralph Kalunga. Ralph?
Thank you, Naomi. And hello, everyone. I'm Ralph Kalunga, a thought leader here at SAP Concur. And today I'm going to cover the top 5 considerations as employees return to travel. Let's get started. When business takes to the air, rail, and road again, travel managers from organizations of all shapes and sizes are facing similar questions. As they work to get their company, their travel programs, and employees moving again and moving safely, they're asking questions such as, what should I consider for my company's return to travel strategy? What is the first step I should take? How can I guide travelers to make safe, smart decisions? What safety protocols do I need to consider? And then how can I proactively manage the post-travel experience? Do any of these questions sound familiar? Well, in the next 15 minutes, we will cover each of these topics and provide you some tips and ideas to help you get your travel program moving again while protecting your company and your travelers all along the way. So regarding that first broad question, overall, what should you consider for your return to travel strategy? What are some of the overarching topics to address? Based on what we've seen across our customer base, it starts with collaboration. Working with your internal stakeholders like security, HR, finance, and legal, and external ones like your duty of care provider and travel management companies to map out what's required before restarting travel and what events would necessitate a shutdown. This is about getting ready for starting up, but also preparing for how you're going to handle blips and disruptions along the way. Next is analysis, evaluating your best way to get moving. Many organizations are working towards a phased approach returning to travel as states, countries, borders reopen and are considered safe to travel. Another critical component is the progression of communication. It is essential that recognizing more frequent communications will be required than what you've done in the past. Plan to publish travel and expense policies, guidelines, and frequently, reflect on the changes and nuances of today's evolving travel landscape. And finally, focus on adaptation. I think it's really important to acknowledge that travelers will need time to adjust to new travel dynamics and your policies going forward. So what's the first step you should take? And it seems getting started is always the hardest part. So I think it's really important that as you focus on what is that step you should take to get your program moving again, you've got to think about planning ahead for continuous change. Recognizing flexibility will be essential for everyone is also very, very critical to think about. And then determining what constitutes essential travel. Should that be really only, should it first be based upon revenue generating travel? Is it customer focused travel? Is it business operations travel? Those, I think, are some of the things you need to consider. And so I think it is a matter of, we will be moving towards considering a phased approach, no matter which one of those you essentially determine is first essential travel. And then also the really important step here is prepping travelers for what to expect, as they get out on the road going forward. So after covering these points, how can you guide travelers to make safe and smart decisions? First thing I think it's really extremely important for your travelers to do is to update their emergency contact information in their travel profiles. And then I think it's really also another critical step here is referring employees to a travel resource center for up-to-date restrictions, travel restrictions, health and safety protocols, all type of information that may be available out there. Resources such as the World Health Organization, the CDC, looking at your supplier websites in terms of what information will they have, or require for a return to travel. Will PEP requirements or personal protection equipment such as mask, hand cleaner, these sorts of things, be required by suppliers. And it's just having a one single source where your employees can go to reference this information is extremely important. And then I think reinforcing a pre-trip awareness or an approval process. I think that's very important as we go forward in terms of better understanding, who is going to be traveling. Again, is it business critical? Is it business essential? And making sure that your management team is aware of what your plans are if you're a traveler, and ensuring that they're in agreement, as to the necessity for you to travel and or use other different type of methodologies. And then also, encourage mobile app usage to enable communication and alerts. Certainly, as we live in a mobile society, it's really essential no matter where you travel in the world to be connected. And the mobile device obviously is really business critical as I see it, going forward. Now, with this, I'm going to just quickly run through some of the screenshots that are within Concur Travel to help you understand where to go to basically ask your employees to fill out the information. So the first screenshot, this is again the landing page of Concur Travel. And if you notice overall, over in the top right-hand corner, where it says basically the profile, and if you click on that profile information, it'll actually have that drop down. And so you can actually go to your profile setting if you were to click on that, and that'll take you to this next page, which has virtually all the different profile options that an employee has, so they can go out and fill out this information and or ensure that this information is current. We actually advise that this is done on an annual basis in order to make sure that everything is current, especially as we go forward, with post-COVID travel, just to make sure that the contact information is there. And if this is actually the personal profile or personal information within the profile, and there's just a lot of different areas. One of the things that you have the option to do is to make it mandatory that employees put in their emergency contact information. So as they're filling this page out, they cannot advance unless they absolutely provide that emergency contact information, which we actually think is a best practice, especially as you look towards, ensuring duty of care for all your employees. And this is just basically one of the last screenshots of, again, some of the information that's within the travel profile itself. Now, as part of helping travelers, make smart decisions, we're all looking at safety in a new way. And we need to recognize, pre, during, and post-trip measures need to be implemented in order to ensure we're covering all the bases. So let's start with the pre-trip. PPE, or personal protection equipment, is a hot topic everywhere. So it's important to define a clear company position on when personal protection equipment such as mask, hand cleaner, safety wipes, etc., should be used, and if these costs can be expensed. We also believe that communicating with travelers to prepare them to comply with requirements for wearing masks and to ensure understanding airport-specific security guidelines in advance of their trips is extremely important in order to avoid issues or delays. Establishing with your TMC partners pre-trip reporting of all upcoming travel is also something that's very important as far as we're concerned, in order to sit down and ensure that everybody is in sync as to what travel is going to be taking place. and reminding your employees to use TripIt to access neighborhood safety scores, as well as receiving supplier alerts. TripIt is our award-winning app, but it certainly is viewed as being a benefit to most travelers in order to allow them to sit down and ensure that they're getting the most updated information. Also advising travelers on what to do, if at any point during a trip they feel unwell or sick, and who to contact in case of a medical emergency. Also verifying and deploying duty of care services and solutions to support employees' risk management and safety communications, which helps inform all travelers on who to contact, should the need arise. Educating travelers on the new standard health practices for travel, such as online check-in, electronic boarding passes, and contactless baggage drops is very, very important. And I think it's really important to also encourage the use of contactless payment methods and re-educate travelers on how Concur Expense helps eliminate the need for paper receipts. And lastly, it's also reminding travelers to allow extra time at airport check-ins and health screenings, and to always practice social distancing, especially on public transit systems. Now, and finally, the return to home experience is really more about than just the expense reports, receipts, and reconciliation. So as you put policies and processes in place to help keep all employees safe as travelers get back to their homes, you should consider advising travelers to work from home for 14 calendar days once they return from their trip, to avoid visits to the company, supplier, or customer offices during this time, to communicating a maximal reimbursement allowance per trip for PPE, and then creating dashboards and reports that provide a more complete picture of your spend and insights into trends and policy compliance, and defining standard post-travel reports for your senior management is always a good idea. And then to also utilize traveler feedback to help create future travel trainings, and to be able to share with other travelers going forward and employees about the travel experience post-COVID, and what else can be learned from that. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time today, and I'm grateful to have had this opportunity to share some thoughts and ideas with you, and just wish you safe travels, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ralph. If you'd like to check out additional resources available within the Timely Topics Education Series, please be sure to click through the link that can be found in the Resources widget. And as a final reminder, please be sure to complete the survey before you go. Thanks so much for joining us.